Well, welcome to Father and Son. Welcome to you, Tom.
Morning, Dave.
It's Oaks Day today, and as soon as we've done this show, I'm heading out there.
I thought you might be.
See if I could pick a winner or two. Now, yesterday the election in the United States was conducted. The Republicans picked up 43 seats in the Congress, House of Reps, and that gives them the balance of power. There'll be a new speaker, and he's the most, I forget his name, but he's the most influential Republican now. Now, this has some consequences. The Democrats failed to get a majority in the Senate because two of those Tea Party people didn't get elected. So at least Obama's still got a majority in the Senate, but the Republicans are against climate change, so that means any legislation Obama tries to put up probably won't get through, and that makes Australia look more and more stupid in my view.
Well, that's right. I mean, the Tea Party has had a big victory, and it's, of course, the more right-wing, anti-big government end of the Republican Party, so they'll have a big influence on things. Look, it often happens with midterm elections. After a president's been elected, you end up with this very messy situation where you've got president from one party, in this case the Democrats, but the Republicans controlling the Congress, which is where most of the money bills get passed, so it's pretty hard if you're a president from one party. The other thing, that, as well as the environmental issues that the Tea Party and Republicans are opposed to, is, as I mentioned, the concept of big government. And what's interesting around the world, if you look at the UK, they have embarked on a crash program of small government. They are cutting government spending in a way not seen in generations. Whereas in the US, they've decided that continuing government spending, government programs is the way to pull the country out of recession. Now, that's going to be very hard for Obama to do now because the Tea Party is opposed to big government. In fact, wants to reduce government spending quite dramatically, not on the military, but on pretty much most other things. And you've got a real clash here. I mean, you might just end up with a lame duck president who, to be honest, can't do anything for the next couple of years.
It's interesting. A couple of other presidents had this sort of problem. One was the champion president, what's his name? The actor. No, the actor.
Oh, Reagan.
Reagan.
Nearly 80 said that.
And Clinton had the same problem, and they both came back and won the presidential election for the second time. So, and of course, what Obama will be able to do if he can't get things through, he'll be blaming the Republicans for it. But I'm not sure the Tea Party did quite as well as you suggested there, because those Republicans, because two of the seats they expected to win, one in Delaware and the other one somewhere else down south, they didn't win because the Tea Party type people were candidates.
Well, that's right. And look, a lot of them come across as complete nutters. I mean, one of their candidates had to actually campaign saying, "I am not a witch," the implication being that possibly she was. I mean,
she was one of the ones that didn't get in.
That's right. Look, but the point is that they have shifted the debate in the US to the right, and whether it's within the Republican Party, or remember there's a lot of right-wing Democrats as well. But people need to realise that US politics is so very different to Australia. I mean, just because people come from the same party doesn't mean that they agree with each other. No. Anyway, things have shifted to the right. Obama's going to find it difficult to get a lot of his big programs through, and I think the sort of government spending and largesse we saw during the financial crisis 2 years ago would be much, much harder to do now that you've had this shift towards the Republican Party in the midterm elections.
Now, the Republicans were saying that they wanted to reverse all the Medicare and all the health things which Obama got through. Because the Democrats kept control of the Senate, that is unlikely to occur now.
Yeah, and curiously, of course, the Medicare things are pretty popular with the person on the street. So,
yes.
I mean, look, it's a classic thing in America. Everybody says we want smaller government, but not for me, of course, and I also don't want to pay more taxes. So you get this weird situation. I mean, that's not dissimilar to here in Australia, where everybody wants the government to do more things, but no one actually wants to pay for it.
Well, shifting on to Australia, I thought the Reserve Bank made a fundamental error raising interest rates. Underlying inflation is down, as admitted by the RBA chairman. I don't understand why they did it. And then, of course, compounding that is the behaviour of the Commonwealth Bank. If you want to win a PR battle, that isn't the way to go through it.
No.
Just really dumb, I think, to do what they did.
Yeah, well, I spent Cup Day reading through Glenn Stevens' testimony. He's the head of the Reserve Bank.
Weren't you watching the races?
Well, I watched it briefly, but I was focusing on bigger issues. And he admits underlying inflation 2.5%, and that's bang in the middle of the Reserve Bank's target rate of 2 to 3%. He then sort of seemed to make the argument that the ongoing China boom will eventually lead to inflation in Australia. Now I don't buy that. The China boom is very important for parts of Western Australia and Queensland, but it doesn't have a massive impact on the rest of the economy. And secondly, it is one of the things that's keeping the Australian dollar so strong, which reduces import prices.
Yeah, and reduces inflation.
Exactly. So if you believe in the China boom, it means you've got to believe in a strong Australian dollar. And if you believe in a strong Australian dollar, you've got to believe in lower inflation from overseas. So either the Reserve Bank is saying something that we don't and they don't want to talk about, or here's a conspiracy theory for you: the Reserve Bank would prefer the Liberals to be back in power, and of course all this talk of regulating interest rates has made Joe Hockey look quite smart.
It does.
Not smart, but popular.
It does. It didn't look too good last week, but
no,
it's a lot better now.
Everybody's saying, oh, what a clever idea, why can't you be more like Joe? I mean, no one's come up with a real way to do it, and we're going to have all these idiotic calls for a People's Bank and this and that to be set up, and there'll be probably another inquiry into the financial system. But the Commonwealth Bank, to almost double what the Reserve Bank did, while it's entitled to do that, is extraordinarily bad PR. And I assume they, of course, they knew that this would happen. It'll be very interesting to see what Westpac, ANZ, and National Australia Bank do, because at the moment they haven't announced their rate rises.
Well, I'll bet they don't go as high as the Commonwealth.
No, I reckon 25 to 30 bits, broadly in line with the Reserve Bank, and they'll let all the bad press focus on the Commonwealth. But anyway, it was an extraordinary week, and it's interesting when you think about it, because in America they're printing money because they've got a recession, and here we're trying to make money more expensive because we've got a boom. And it just shows you how different countries can be.
I heard the retailers will be a quiet Christmas, I think.
Yes, there'll be a lot of empty stockings on Christmas morning, a lot of disappointed faces. I know that you've saved up money for my present, so I'm not worried about that.
No, I'll give you one of the presents I got for my birthday. Anything else you want to raise?
Well, I guess leaving aside the banks and all that sort of thing, I've been thinking a little bit about all the sort of major events we have now. We have a lot of them here in Victoria where you and I live. And there's talk that Australia should try and get the World Cup and maybe even have another crack at the Olympics again at some stage soon. I think there are some benefits for these events, but when it comes to the World Cup, I don't think we should be bothering to go for it. I think that anything that's a one-off doesn't have any lasting legacy apart from stadiums out in the middle of nowhere that no one uses. And it's just occurred to me because here in Victoria they're talking about spending more and more and more money to try and attract whatever the events are that we still don't have.
What you're saying is they should be events that occur annually.
I think if they occur annually, they can get a following and people will at least come back to see them. If they're one-offs like the Commonwealth Games, the Olympic Games, the World Football Cup or whatever, I think we're best to leave them absolutely well alone.
All right, well, that's about it for this week. It's a difficult week, race week. We've all worn out and it's only Thursday. We've got 2 days to go. I'll go to the Oaks now and they call it the Females' Day, but it's really the Boys' Day. Lots of things to look at, other than horses. See you next week.